When people ask what the loneliest sound in the world is, they imagine silence. They are wrong. The loneliest sound is your own house, after your child stops calling it home. For 23 years, every morning in my little blue cottage began with laughter. Tiny feet running across the wooden floor. Burnt pancakes that somehow tasted perfect, because my daughter insisted she had helped make breakfast. Birthday candles. School concerts. Late-night talks over hot chocolate while rain tapped gently against the windows. Now, the loudest thing in my house was the ticking clock hanging above the fireplace. Tick, tick, tick. Sometimes I caught myself speaking out loud, just to hear another voice. Iris, don't forget your tea. Then I'd stop, because Iris hadn't lived with me for almost 12 years. I would laugh at myself. A small laugh. One that disappeared before it ever reached my eyes. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 74 years old. A widow. A retired elementary school teacher. And until 3 weeks ago, I believed I had raised the kindest daughter in the world. Funny how one ordinary Tuesday can quietly walk into your life, carrying enough darkness to swallow every beautiful memory you've ever protected. That morning began with sunshine spilling through my kitchen window. I hummed an old tune while watering the flowers my late husband, Arthur, had planted before cancer stole him from me 16 years earlier. Oh, Arthur, I whispered, smiling at the roses. You'd be proud. They survived another winter. Sometimes I still talk to him. Love doesn't vanish, because someone does. It simply learns to live with silence. The phone rang. I smiled before answering. Only one person still called during breakfast. Mom. Iris sounded cheerful, too cheerful. You awake already? I've been awake since 6. Ha ha ha, of course you have. You're impossible. Hearing her laugh melted years off my heart. For a few beautiful seconds. I wasn't an old woman living alone. I was simply her mother again. She cleared her throat. Mom. I was thinking, whenever a sentence begins like that, life changes. You know online banking still confuses you. I manage. Barely. She laughed again. You called me last month, because you thought your television remote was your debit card. Oh, I covered my face. I did do that. We both laughed. The kind of laugh families collect over decades, warm, comfortable, safe. I just worry about you. There it was. Concern.Love.At least, that's what I heard. I could become a joint account holder, she continued softly. Only so I can help pay your bills if you forget. I can monitor everything. Think of it as protecting you. Protecting me? What mother doesn't want to believe her child wants to protect her? I don't know. Oh, Mom. Her voice became sweeter. You spent your whole life taking care of me. I know. Please let me take care of you now. Those words, they wrapped themselves around my heart like a warm blanket. Nobody prepares you for aging, not really. People warn you about wrinkles. They warn you about aching knees. Nobody warns you how wonderful it feels when your grown child says, "Let me take care of you." My eyes filled before I even realized it. You really don't mind? Mind? Mom, she sounded almost offended. I love you. I love you too. So we'll go to the bank tomorrow. I looked around my tiny kitchen. Arthur's photograph smiled from the shelf. For a strange moment, I almost imagined he was trying to tell me something, not with words. Just that quiet feeling husbands somehow leave behind. A hesitation, a tiny whisper inside my chest. Wait. But then I looked back at the family photos. Little Iris with missing front teeth. Teenage Iris hugging me after graduation. Wedding Iris crying into my shoulder. How could photographs lie? How could memories be wrong? All right. Her excitement exploded through the phone. Really? Really? Oh, Mom. She laughed so hard she nearly cried. You won't regret this. Number one of us wouldn't. The next afternoon we sat inside the bank. The young employee smiled kindly. So you're adding your daughter to the account? Yes. I signed where they pointed, again point one more signature, another initial. So many papers. So now Iris can help manage everything. The employee nodded. Yes, Help. Such a harmless little word. Help. Nobody in that bright office looked nervous. Nobody looked suspicious. Nobody pulled me aside. Nobody asked, Mrs. Brooks, are you absolutely certain? Instead, everyone smiled. Congratulations. Everything was complete. As we walked outside, Iris hugged me tighter than she had in years. I promise I'll make things easier. I kissed her forehead. My sweet girl. She drove me home, made dinner, fixed the loose cabinet under my sink, even vacuumed the hallway. Watching her move through my little house filled me with joy. Maybe this was the beginning of something wonderful. Maybe growing older didn't have to mean growing lonely. When she left, she hugged me again. I'll handle everything. I know. I've got you. Those 3 words echoed through my empty hallway long after her car disappeared around the corner. I've got you. I believed every single syllable. I slept peacefully that night, for the first time in months, because I thought my daughter had become my guardian. I had no idea someone else was quietly becoming the guardian of my bank account. And unlike my daughter, the bank never confused love with trust. 3 weeks later, a phone call would arrive that would split my world into 2 lives. The life before I answered, and the life after. The woman on the other end would say just 7 words. 7 words that would make my hands begin to shake. Mrs. Brooks, there's something terribly wrong. And everything I believed about my own daughter would never be the same. The morning of the phone call began like every other morning. I fed the birds, watered Arthur's roses, made a single cup of tea, even though my hands still reached for 2 mugs out of habit. Old habits never really die. They simply wait for your heart to catch up. I carried my tea to the living room and sat beside the window where Arthur used to read the newspaper every Sunday. His favorite chair remained exactly where he had left it. Sometimes neighbors asked why I never moved it. I always smiled. Because someone still sits there. They thought I was joking. I wasn't. The telephone rang, not my mobile, the old landline, the one almost nobody used anymore. I answered without much thought. Hello. Good morning. May I speak with Mrs. Eleanor Brooks? This is Eleanor. My name is Rebecca. I'm calling from the fraud prevention department at your bank. Fraud, the word felt strange, heavy, like a storm cloud drifting into a clear sky. Oh dear, my heart stumbled. Is something wrong with my account? There was a pause. A careful pause, the kind people use when they are choosing words that cannot be taken back. Mrs. Brooks, her voice softened. We've noticed several unusual transactions over the past 18 days. I blinked. I'm sorry. There have been multiple large transfers from your savings account. I laughed, not because it was funny, because surely there had been a mistake. Ha ha ha, that can't be right. I'm afraid the transactions are confirmed. No. I smiled at Arthur's photograph, as though he could explain it. There must be another Eleanor Brooks. She quietly confirmed my address, my birthday, the last 4 digits of my account, no. It was me. It had always been me. Mrs. Brooks, how much? Silence. Then approximately $284,000. The teacup slipped from my fingers. It shattered across the wooden floor. Hot tea spread beneath my slippers. I never felt the heat. No. The word escaped my lips before I could stop it. No. No. My savings. 42 years of teaching. 42 years of skipping vacations. Packing lunches, instead of buying them. Sewing old clothes, instead of replacing them. Arthur working double shifts, every birthday, where we said We'll celebrate next year. Every anniversary where we promised, one day we'll travel. Every sacrifice, every dream, gone. No. Rebecca continued gently. Several transfers were authorized online. Online? Yes. I don't even know how. Another pause. Mrs. Brooks, is anyone else authorized to access your account? I smiled, relieved. Finally, the explanation. Oh? My daughter. She helps me. Rebecca's keyboard stopped clicking. I see. She pays my bills. Does she? Yes. I only added her name a few weeks ago. More silence, the kind that slowly crawls beneath your skin. Mrs. Brooks, when was the last time you personally logged into your account? I've never logged in. I don't know the password. Did someone create online banking recently? I suppose Iris did. Rebecca inhaled, very slowly, very carefully. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Did you personally approve transfers, totaling nearly $300,000? My heartbeat filled the room. No. I never transferred anything. I didn't even know you could. Her voice became quieter, almost sorrowful. I think you should come into the branch today. Immediately. I stared at the broken teacup. The little blue flowers painted around its edge reminded me of our 25th wedding anniversary. Arthur had surprised me with it. One cup had broken years ago. Now the second one lay in pieces. Funny how objects sometimes know before people do. I'll come. The drive to the bank took 12 minutes. It felt like 12 years. Every red light seemed cruel. Every passing minute whispered, "You're too late. You're too late. You're too late." Rebecca greeted me personally. She couldn't have been older than 35. Young enough to be my daughter. Old enough to recognize heartbreak when it walked through the front door. She offered me a chair, water, tissues. I accepted none of them. I just want to understand. She turned the computer screen toward me. Rows of transactions filled the page. 20,000. 35,000. 12,000. 40,000. Another 18. Another 25. Again, again, again. Each transfer carried the same authorization. Joint account holder. My eyes moved across the screen, refusing to understand what they were seeing. There has to be a mistake. Rebecca shook her head gently. The transfers were authenticated using valid credentials. But I know. She looked directly into my eyes. You said you never used online banking. I didn't. And you never approved these. I swear. I believe you. Those 3 words almost broke me. A stranger believed me faster than my own thoughts could. So my voice trembled. Where did the money go? Rebecca clicked another page. Different account numbers. Different destinations. 1 payment caught my eye. Luxury vehicle dealership. Another. Beachfront property deposit. Another. Designer furniture. Vacation booking. Jewelry retailer. My lips parted. I couldn't breathe. Iris had recently told me they were finally doing better financially. She had laughed over dinner. We've been blessed. I remembered smiling. Oh, Arthur would have loved hearing that. Blessed, the word tasted bitter now. Rebecca reached for a folder. We're required to report transactions that appear suspicious. I looked at her. But she was allowed. Yes. Legally, she had account access. Then why are you calling it fraud? Rebecca leaned forward. Because permission to access an account is not necessarily permission to take someone's life savings. My chest tightened. My daughter wouldn't. The sentence refused to finish itself. Wouldn't what? Lie, steal, betray me? Children don't suddenly become strangers. Do they? Or had I simply been reading yesterday's version of my daughter while she quietly became someone else? Rebecca handed me printed statements, I couldn't hold them steady. My hands shook so violently the papers rattled. She placed her own hand over mine. Warm, steady, human. I'm so sorry. Nobody had said those words yet. Not until then. Not until someone who had never met me. Lowered my head. A single tear landed on the paperwork. Then another. Then another. I tried to stop. I really did. Instead, years of trust dissolved into quiet sobs inside a small office where strangers pretended not to notice. I only wanted her to feel loved. I whispered. I thought she was helping me. Rebecca's eyes filled too. Sometimes compassion needs no history, only honesty. After several minutes, she spoke again. There is something else you should know. I looked up. The transactions became larger after one specific event. What event? Rebecca clicked another date. I recognized it immediately. It was the day Iris had insisted on taking me to lunch. She hugged me, held my hand, called me the best mother in the world. Later that afternoon, $40,000 disappeared. I closed my eyes. Not because I couldn't bear looking at the screen, because suddenly, every hug, every smile, every I love you, every don't worry, Mom, every I've got you, started sounding different, and deep inside, a terrifying question rose to the surface. If she could smile while emptying my future, what else had been a lie? Before I could ask another question, Rebecca's phone rang. She answered it, listened for only a few seconds, and her expression changed. Then she slowly turned toward me. Mrs. Brooks, she swallowed hard. Your daughter just tried to transfer another $50,000. And this time, the bank stopped her. The bank stopped her. Those 5 words echoed through the office long after Rebecca finished speaking. For a moment, I simply stared at her. I wasn't relieved. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised anymore. I was empty. It felt as though someone had quietly opened a door inside my chest and let everything that made me drift away. Rebecca pushed a box of tissues a little closer. I finally reached for one. Then another. Then another. My tears refused to stop. I'm sorry, I whispered. Rebecca frowned gently. Mrs. Brooks. You don't have anything to apologize for. I nodded anyway. Old habits. Teachers apologized, mothers apologized, wives apologized, women of my generation apologized even when life had hurt them. I'm sorry, I cried. You don't have to be strong today. Those words landed somewhere deep inside me. Strong. People always admired strong women. Nobody ever asked whether they were tired. I looked through the large glass windows of the bank. Outside, people walked past carrying coffee. A young father laughed as his little boy chased pigeons across the sidewalk. A couple argued over which flowers to buy. Life was continuing. Completely unaware that mine had just fallen apart. Rebecca cleared her throat. There is one more thing. I looked back. The transfer your daughter attempted this morning triggered our fraud system, because of the amount. How much? $50,000. My voice cracked. I don't even know why she needs that much. Rebecca hesitated. We may know. She turned the screen toward me again. The destination account included a payment reference. What did it say? Rebecca read it quietly. Final property payment. Property, I blinked. Iris never mentioned buying a house. Rebecca clicked another transaction. There was also a payment labeled interior designer. Another. Swimming pool installation. Another. Luxury kitchen upgrade. Luxury. Swimming pool. Designer furniture. Kitchen upgrade. The words felt like stones dropping one after another into my heart. Arthur and I had dreamed of replacing our tiny kitchen for 20 years. Instead, we patched broken cabinets, repainted old walls, fixed leaking pipes ourselves. We always said, the important thing is that we're together. And now, someone was building a dream house, with our sacrifices, with Arthur's overtime, with my pension, with the money we had earned one careful dollar at a time. Rebecca spoke softly. Would you like us to contact your daughter while you're here? I looked down at my wedding ring. I still wore it. 16 years after Arthur's passing. He used to tell me something whenever I doubted people. Trust is precious, Ellie. He always called me Ellie. It takes years to build. And seconds to lose. I smiled sadly. You were right again. Rebecca looked confused. I'm sorry. My husband. She smiled gently. He sounds like he was wise. He was. The wisest man I ever knew. A silence settled between us. Finally, I nodded. Yes. Call her. Rebecca dialed the number. She placed the call on speaker, after asking my permission. 1 ring. 2. 3. Then, hi. Iris answered brightly. Mom? No, Rebecca replied calmly. My name is Rebecca. I'm calling from First Heritage Bank. There was a tiny pause. Oh? What can I help you with? Professional, calm, almost cheerful. We're calling regarding a transfer request made this morning. Yes? We've temporarily placed it on hold. Another pause. Why? It has been flagged for review. I waited. Surely now she would say, there must be some mistake. Surely now she would ask if I was all right. Surely now she would worry about me. Instead, her voice sharpened. I have legal access to that account. Rebecca remained polite. Yes, you do. So release the transfer. I'm afraid we can't do that until we complete our review. A sigh escaped through the speaker, loud, annoyed. I don't have time for this. Rebecca glanced at me, then quietly said, Mrs. Brooks is here with me. Silence, absolute silence, not even breathing. Then, my mother is there. Yes. Another long pause. When Iris finally spoke, her voice had changed completely. Mom? I answered. I'm here. Oh, thank goodness. She laughed nervously. I was wondering why the bank was calling. I waited. I was actually going to explain everything tonight. Explain what? Iris, my voice shook. Did you take my savings? No. The answer came too quickly. Absolutely not. Rebecca quietly slid the printed statements toward me. I stared at the numbers while listening. I've only been managing your money. Managing? Yes. I invested some. You invested it? Well. Sort of. Then where is it? You'll get it back. When? Silence. Iris. When? You don't understand. No. I don't. Her breathing became heavier. We needed help. We? Michael lost money. Michael.My son-in-law, the man who hugged me every Christmas, who called me Mom. Who insisted on carrying my groceries inside. He had business problems. So you took my retirement. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Another pause. We were going to pay you back. When? As soon as things improved. When, Iris? No answer. Rebecca lowered her eyes. She didn't need to hear any more. But I did. I needed the truth, every painful piece of it. I trusted you. I know. You looked me in the eyes. I know. You hugged me. I know. You told me you loved me. I do love you. Those words broke something inside me. Love. People throw that word around as though it excuses everything. I'm your mother. I know. I skipped meals so you could eat. Silence. I wore the same winter coat for 11 years, so you could have piano lessons. Silence. Your father worked until his back gave out. Silence. He never complained. I couldn't stop now. You know why? More silence. Because we believed every sacrifice was worth it. My tears returned. We thought we were building your future. Instead, had we built her greed? Finally, Iris whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I thought you had enough. Enough, enough. The word struck harder than any scream could have. Enough.As though 42 years of saving meant I wouldn't notice.As though a lifetime of discipline meant I no longer deserved what I had earned.As though old age had somehow made my future less valuable. Rebecca slowly muted the call for a moment. She looked at me with heartbreaking kindness. You don't have to continue. I wiped my eyes. Oh, I do. Because there was one question left. Only one. A question every mother fears asking. One that could never truly be answered. I nodded for Rebecca to unmute the line. Iris. Yes? When you kissed my forehead before you left my house, my voice trembled so badly I barely recognized it. Did you already know you were taking my money? The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like the longest silence of my entire life, and when Iris finally answered, I wished she had stayed silent forever. I did. The words came so quietly, so calmly, that for a moment, I thought I had imagined them. I did. There it was again. No confusion. No misunderstanding. No accident. Just the truth. A truth no mother ever praised to hear. I closed my eyes. Not because I wanted to escape. Because if I kept them open, I was afraid the world itself would disappear. Rebecca slowly lowered the phone onto the desk. Neither of us spoke. What words could possibly exist after a daughter admits she planned the betrayal before hugging her own mother? Finally, I found my voice. So every smile, I swallowed. Every hug, another tear slipped down my cheek. Every I love you, my lips trembled. You already knew. On the speaker, Iris began crying. Real tears. At least they sounded real. Mom, please, no. For the first time in my 74 years, I interrupted my own child. You let me thank you. You let me believe you were protecting me. You watched me feel safe. I know. No. You don't. If you understood, you couldn't have done it. The silence that followed hurt more than shouting ever could. Then another voice entered the call. A man's voice. Iris. Michael. My son-in-law. Honey, what's going on? I recognized his voice immediately. He had eaten dinner at my table for 15 years. He had called Arthur Dad. He had carried Arthur's casket with tears in his eyes. Now, his voice sounded nervous. Iris. She whispered something I couldn't hear. Then Michael spoke louder. Eleanor. It's Mom. I answered quietly. Another silence. Then, oh, just one word. One tiny word. Filled with fear, not guilt, fear. Michael. My voice remained surprisingly calm. Did you know? He didn't answer. Michael. His voice cracked. I told her not to. I laughed. A small, broken laugh. Ha ha ha, it barely sounded human. That's your answer. I told her not to. I tried. You tried. Yes. But you still spent it. You still lived in it. You still slept peacefully every night. His breathing became louder. I made mistakes. No. You made choices. There is a difference. Mistakes happen in seconds. Choices happen over and over again. Rebecca quietly reached over and turned the speaker volume down, not to hide the conversation. To soften it. Perhaps she knew hearts can only break so loudly before they stop making noise altogether. Then Iris began speaking again. Mom, we were drowning. So you threw me into the water instead? No. We were desperate. I nodded slowly. I believe you. Rebecca looked surprised. Even Iris stopped crying for a moment. You believe me? Yes. I believe you were desperate. I believe life became difficult. I believe bills piled up. I believe you were frightened. My voice became softer. But do you know what I don't believe? Silence. I don't believe you ran out of choices. You never asked me. Another silence. You never came to my door. You never said, Mom, we're in trouble. I would have helped. I would have sold my jewelry. I would have mortgaged this little house. I would have emptied my savings myself. I would have done it smiling. Because that's what mothers do. We give, even when we have almost nothing left. I would have held your hands and said, we'll get through this together. Instead, you chose darkness before you ever gave love a chance. On the other end, I heard Iris sobbing uncontrollably. I was ashamed. Oh, sweetheart, those words escaped before I could stop them. Sweetheart, even after everything, my heart still remembered who she used to be. I would have hugged you. You didn't have to steal my trust. You only had to ask for my help. She cried harder. I didn't think you'd understand. I smiled sadly. I spent your entire childhood understanding you. I knew when you pretended to be sick because of school. I knew when you broke the kitchen window and blamed the cat. I knew when your first boyfriend broke your heart. I understood every version of you. You only forgot the woman who raised you. The office became completely silent. Even Rebecca quietly wiped her own eyes. Some pain belongs to everyone who witnesses it. Then Michael spoke again. We'll sell the house. I looked toward the window. What? We'll sell everything. The furniture. The car. The house. We'll repay every dollar. I wanted to feel relief, instead I felt tired. So quickly. I asked. What changed? He answered honestly. You? I don't understand. I've never heard you sound like this. He paused. I kept telling myself it wasn't stealing because we'd pay it back. I convinced myself we were borrowing. His voice broke. But hearing you, he couldn't finish. I forgot there was a person behind the money. A person, imagine that. It took losing almost everything, for them to remember I wasn't just an account balance. I was their mother, their family, their history, their home. I looked at Arthur's photograph in my wallet. I always carried a small picture of him. The edges had become worn over the years. I smiled through tears. You always said character appears when nobody is watching. Rebecca quietly asked, would you like us to involve the police? The question hung in the air. Heavy. Painful. Final. Police. My own daughter. My own son-in-law. The little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. The young man who nervously asked for her hand in marriage. One decision, and their lives would change forever. I looked down at my shaking hands. Hands that had bandaged scraped knees, braided little pigtails, baked birthday cakes, wrapped Christmas presents. Held Arthur's hand during his final breath. Could those same hands now sign papers that might send my daughter to prison? I didn't know. For the first time in my life, I truly didn't know what the right thing was. Justice, mercy, forgiveness, protection. Was there even a right answer anymore? Rebecca quietly slid a single form across the desk. I don't need your answer today. She spoke gently. But eventually, you will have to decide. I stared at the blank line waiting for my signature. It looked harmless. Just a little line, yet it carried the weight of an entire family. My pen hovered above the paper, then stopped, because through the office window, I saw someone running across the parking lot. A woman, hair messy, face covered in tears. She wasn't slowing down. She wasn't looking around. She was running straight toward the bank entrance. Rebecca looked outside. Then back at me, Her eyes widened. Mrs. Brooks, it's your daughter. And the expression on Iris's face was unlike anything I had ever seen before. The front doors of the bank burst open, heads turned, conversations stopped, even the sound of keyboards faded into silence. Iris stood just inside the entrance, struggling to catch her breath. Her hair was untidy, mascara had streaked down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the polished, confident woman who had hugged me only weeks before. She looked lost. For one impossible second, I didn't see the woman who had emptied my savings. I saw the little girl who used to run across the playground with scraped knees, searching for me after school. Mom, her voice cracked. She took one step forward, then another, until she was standing only a few feet away. Neither of us moved, neither of us spoke. How do you embrace someone whose arms have just broken your heart? How do you walk away from the child you carried for 9 months? Rebecca quietly stood. I'll give you both some privacy. She signaled to the other employees, and one by one they respectfully stepped away. The office became still. Only Iris and I remained. She looked at me, then at the folder on the desk. The bank statements, the transfer records, the evidence. She already knew. There was nothing left to hide. I'm sorry. The words tumbled out between sobs. I'm so sorry. I listened. That's all I did. I listened. She wiped her face with trembling hands. I kept telling myself I'd fix everything before you ever found out. I know. I thought we'd repay it. I know. I never wanted to hurt you. I closed my eyes. But you did. She nodded. I know. No. I opened my eyes again. You know the words. I don't think you know the feeling. Fresh tears rolled down her face. When your father died, I whispered. I thought that was the worst pain I would ever experience. I looked directly into her eyes. I was wrong. She covered her mouth. As if the truth itself had struck her. You buried your father with me. I continued quietly. We cried together. We held each other. And I remember thinking, I still have my daughter. A tear slipped down my cheek. I didn't know I would lose you too. Iris collapsed into the chair across from me, not gracefully, not dramatically. Her legs simply gave out beneath her. She buried her face in her hands. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I nodded slowly. Not today. She looked up. Hope flickered across her face, then faded again. I understand. No. I said gently. I don't think you do. She waited. Forgiveness, I whispered, isn't something people ask for because they feel guilty. It's something they earn by becoming different than the person who caused the pain. She stared at me, silent, listening. 4 weeks, I continued. I blamed myself. I wondered if I'd failed as a mother. I wondered whether I'd spoiled you. Whether I loved you too much. My voice shook. I even wondered whether growing old had simply made me foolish. She shook her head violently. No. No, Mom. This is my fault. Yes. The word surprised both of us. I had never spoken to her like that before. Yes. It is. Loving someone doesn't mean pretending they didn't hurt you. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is telling the truth. She cried harder. I don't want excuses anymore. I said softly. I want honesty. She nodded. You'll have it. The whole truth. For the next hour, she told me everything, not quickly, not proudly. Every confession seemed to hurt her as much as hearing it hurt me. Michael's business hadn't simply struggled. It had collapsed. Loans, credit cards, bad investments. They borrowed money to pay old debts, then borrowed more. Each month became worse than the one before. Collectors called constantly. Letters filled their mailbox. Fear became part of breakfast, part of lunch. Part of every sleepless night. I panicked. She whispered. The day you added me to the account. She looked away. I realized how much money was there. And something inside me, she couldn't continue. What happened? I asked. I stopped seeing it as your money. She cried. I started seeing it as the answer. The answer. No money never fixes broken choices. It only gives them room to grow. I transferred 10,000 first. She admitted. I kept waiting for you to notice. I didn't. So I convinced myself. She looked ashamed. That maybe it wasn't really hurting anyone. One lie became another. 10,000 became 20. Became 50. Soon, every transfer felt easier than the last. Sin has a frightening habit. The second step is always easier than the first. I hated myself. She whispered. Every time I came to your house. I wanted to tell you. Then why didn't you? Because every time you smiled at me, she broke down again. I became a coward. Silence settled between us. Not an angry silence. A grieving one. Finally, I reached into my purse. I pulled out an old photograph. The edges were faded, the colors almost gone. It showed Arthur sitting on the grass with 5-year-old Iris asleep on his lap. She still sucked her thumb back then. Arthur was smiling at the camera. I handed it to her. She stared at it. Then began sobbing uncontrollably. He adored you. I whispered. He believed you would become someone who made the world kinder. She pressed the photograph against her chest. I'm sorry. I know. I wish he were here. So do I. He'd know what to do. I smiled through tears. No. He wouldn't. She looked confused. Your father wasn't perfect. He would be crying beside us. Just like we are. I stood slowly. My knees ached. My back protested. Age has a way of reminding you that even standing requires courage. I walked around the desk. Iris looked terrified. As though expecting me to slap her. Instead, I gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Just as I had done when she was a little girl. She began shaking. Mom, I still love you. She burst into tears louder than before. But love, I whispered, cannot erase consequences. She nodded. I understand. Do you? Yes. I'll sell everything. I'll work. I'll repay every dollar. If it takes the rest of my life. I looked into her eyes. For the first time in weeks. I didn't see excuses. I saw shame, real shame. The kind that changes people. Or destroys them. Rebecca quietly returned to the office. She didn't interrupt. She simply placed one envelope on the desk. Mrs. Brooks, she spoke gently. Our legal department needs your decision. The room fell silent once more. Inside that envelope was the form that would determine whether the story ended in a courtroom or somewhere no one expected. I picked it up, took a slow breath, then reached for my pen, and both my daughter and Rebecca held their breath as they waited to see which name I was about to sign. The pen rested between my fingers. It felt heavier than any pen I had ever held. Funny, isn't it? The same hand that had signed thousands of report cards, birthday cards, permission slips, Christmas gifts, now trembled over a single piece of paper that could change my daughter's life forever. Rebecca stood quietly by the window. She wasn't rushing me. She wasn't watching me. She understood that some decisions belong only to the heart. I looked at the form again. One signature, and the investigation would move forward. The bank would cooperate with the authorities. There would be interviews, lawyers, courtrooms, headlines, perhaps, people in town whispering, "Did you hear what happened to Eleanor's daughter?" I could already imagine the looks, the pity, the gossip, but none of that mattered. Only one thing mattered. Could I live with the decision after I made it? I looked at Iris. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She wasn't begging anymore. She wasn't making excuses. She simply waited, the way people wait outside an operating room, knowing life will never be quite the same afterward. I slowly placed the pen back on the desk. I'm not signing it. Rebecca looked surprised. So, you don't want to proceed today? No. I folded my hands together. I need to ask my daughter something first. I turned toward Iris. She immediately sat up. Anything? If the bank had never stopped today's transfer, I paused. If I had never learned the truth, would you have told me? She stared at the floor. The silence answered before she did. Finally, she whispered no. The honesty hurt, but strangely, it also brought peace. At least there were no more lies between us. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She frowned through her tears. For what? For telling me the truth. It came too late. Yes. But it still matters. Rebecca quietly excused herself again, leaving us alone. The room felt different now, lighter, not because the pain was gone, because pretending was finally over. I reached into my handbag. There wasn't much inside. A packet of tissues. My reading glasses. A small notebook. And Arthur's old leather wallet. I opened it carefully. Inside was a folded piece of yellow paper. The edges were soft from years of being opened and closed. What is that? Iris asked. A promise. I unfolded it carefully. It wasn't written by me. It was Arthur's handwriting, neat, strong, steady. 6 months before he passed away, he had written me a letter. A letter I had carried every day since his funeral. I had read it hundreds of times. One paragraph had become part of my soul. I read it aloud. If life ever gives you a choice between revenge and wisdom, choose wisdom. Revenge may satisfy your anger for a moment, but wisdom protects your heart for the rest of your life. The room became silent. I smiled through fresh tears. Your father wasn't a perfect man. But he always tried to leave the world kinder than he found it. I folded the letter again. I've spent 16 years trying to live like that. Iris covered her face. I don't deserve either of you. No. I answered honestly. None of us deserve the people who love us the most. We're simply blessed to have them. She cried harder. I wish I could go back. So do I. I wish I had asked for help. So do I. I wish. Her voice disappeared. I gently interrupted. Wishing changes yesterday. Repentance changes tomorrow. She looked up. Hope flickered in her eyes again. Not the shallow hope of escaping consequences. A quieter hope. The hope that perhaps she could become someone different. I stood. My decision isn't about punishment. It's about responsibility. She nodded. I'll accept whatever you decide. I know. I picked up the envelope again. Rebecca returned when I called her. She sat across from us. Mrs. Brooks. I smiled sadly. I won't ask the bank to withdraw the fraud investigation. Iris lowered her head. A tear landed on Arthur's photograph she still held. But, I continued. I also won't demand the harshest outcome possible. Rebecca listened carefully. I want everything documented. I want every dollar accounted for. I want a legal repayment agreement. I want the house sold. The luxury car sold. The jewelry sold. Everything. I looked at Iris. If you truly want forgiveness, it begins with making things right. She nodded immediately. Yes. Everything. I'll sell it all. I promise. I believed she meant it, not because trust had magically returned. Trust doesn't return in a day. Or a month. Sometimes not even in years. It returns one honest action at a time. Rebecca carefully explained the legal process. There would still be investigations. There would still be consequences. but voluntary cooperation, full repayment, and documented accountability could make a meaningful difference. For the first time that day, I saw relief on Iris's face. Not relief, because she had escaped. Relief because she no longer had to hide. Secrets are heavier than people realize. Before leaving the bank, I walked toward the entrance. The afternoon sun felt warm against my face. I paused on the steps. Arthur used to squeeze my hand whenever life became difficult. He'd smile and say, "Ellie, broken things aren't always ruined. Sometimes they're simply waiting for patient hands." I whispered into the breeze, "I hope you're right." Behind me, I heard footsteps. Iris. She stopped a respectful distance away. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't try to hug me. Some distances must be honored before they can be crossed again. "Mom, yes. Can I ask one thing?" I nodded. "Will you ever trust me again?" I looked into her tear-filled eyes. Then toward the sky. The answer wasn't easy. It wasn't simple, but it was true. "I don't know." Her shoulders fell, then I continued. "But every single day, you'll have the chance to earn one small piece of it back." She cried quietly, not from despair, from gratitude, because sometimes, the greatest gift isn't immediate forgiveness. It's being given the opportunity to become someone worthy of it. As we walked toward the parking lot, neither of us spoke. Words had carried us as far as they could. The rest would have to be proven through actions. And neither of us noticed an elderly man sitting quietly on a nearby bench. He had watched everything, the tears, the silence, the decision. As I passed him, he smiled gently and said just one sentence. A sentence that would stay with me for the rest of my life. "The richest mothers are never the ones with the most money." He paused, then looked at both of us. "They're the ones whose children find their way home before it's too late." I thought that sentence would stay with me forever. The richest mothers are never the ones with the most money. They're the ones whose children find their way home before it's too late. I turned to thank the elderly man, but the bench was empty. I looked around the parking lot. There was no sign of him. Perhaps he had simply walked away. Or perhaps, some people appear in our lives only long enough to leave behind the words we need most. I never saw him again. The weeks that followed were nothing like the life I had imagined. There were meetings, lawyers, financial statements, documents I could barely understand. Every transaction was examined, every dollar was traced, nothing happened. Overnight, healing never does. Just as Iris had promised, the luxury house was listed for sale, the expensive car disappeared from the driveway, the designer furniture was auctioned, the jewelry was sold. Not because anyone forced her, because for the first time, she stopped asking, "How do I save myself?" and started asking, "How do I make this right?" One rainy afternoon, she arrived at my little blue cottage carrying 2 grocery bags, not expensive gifts, just groceries, milk, bread, soup, fresh flowers. She knocked softly. When I opened the door, she didn't step inside. I wanted to ask first. "May I come in?" That question almost made me cry. For years, she had walked into my house as though everything inside belonged to her. Now, she stood on the porch waiting for permission. Respect had returned before trust did. I smiled gently. "You may." She entered quietly. Her eyes wandered around the living room. Nothing had changed. Arthur's chair still stood by the window. The old clock still ticked above the fireplace. The family photographs still covered the walls. She stopped in front of one picture. It showed her at 8 years old, covered in flour while helping me bake cookies. She laughed through her tears. "I burned every batch." "Ha ha ha." Laughed too. "You certainly did. And you still told your father they were delicious." "He ate 6 of them." We both laughed harder. For the first time in months, our laughter didn't hurt. It healed, little by little. One afternoon at a time. Months passed. The repayment process continued exactly as the agreement required. Every month, without fail, Iris brought me copies of every payment, not because I demanded them, because she wanted me to know she had nothing left to hide. Sometimes she stayed for tea. Sometimes only 10 minutes. Sometimes we spoke about flowers. Sometimes about Arthur. Sometimes we simply watched the rain together. Silence slowly stopped being uncomfortable. It became peaceful again. One Sunday, she arrived carrying an old cardboard box. I found these in the attic. Inside were dozens of drawings she had made as a child, crayon hearts, stick figures, handmade Mother's Day cards. One little card caught my attention. The paper was wrinkled and faded. Across the front, in crooked letters, it read, "My mommy is my hero." Inside, she had written with a child's messy handwriting, "When I grow up, I want to take care of you because you always take care of me." My hands began shaking, not from age, from memory. A single tear landed on the card, then another. Iris quietly sat beside me. "I'm finally trying to become the little girl who wrote that." I reached for her hand, not because everything had been forgotten, because she was finally becoming honest again. "I think," I whispered, "she's finding her way back." She rested her head on my shoulder, just as she had done when she was 5 years old. Neither of us spoke. Some apologies become too deep for words. A year later, Rebecca from the bank called again. This time, her voice sounded different, happy. "Mrs. Brooks." "Yes?" "I thought you'd like to know, the final repayment cleared this morning." I closed my eyes. "It has. Every dollar has been returned." I looked toward Arthur's photograph. "We did it." Rebecca laughed softly. "No. I think your family did." After hanging up, I made 2 cups of tea. One for me. One beside Arthur's chair. Old habits never truly leave us. I smiled. "I think you'd be proud of her." The room stayed quiet, but somehow, it didn't feel empty. That evening, Iris came over. She was nervous. "There was one last thing I wanted to give you." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a single key. "My new apartment?" I asked. She nodded. "It's tiny. No swimming pool. No luxury kitchen. No fancy furniture." She smiled. "But every single thing inside belongs to us honestly." I looked at the key for a long moment, then hugged her. A real hug, not because trust was fully restored, but because hope had become stronger than fear. She cried into my shoulder. "I don't deserve another chance." I gently kissed her forehead. "No one earns a second chance. They choose what they do with it." People in town still ask me from time to time, "Weren't you angry?" Of course I was. "Weren't you heartbroken?" More than words can ever describe. "How did you forgive her?" I always answer the same way. Forgiveness didn't happen in a single day. It happened every time she chose honesty over excuses. Every payment. Every apology. Every truthful conversation. Every difficult step. Trust returned one brick at a time, not because time heals everything, but because sincere actions can slowly rebuild what selfish choices destroyed. If Arthur were sitting beside me today, I know exactly what he would say. "Ellie, wealth isn't measured by the size of your savings account. It's measured by the strength of your character when everything else is taken away." I lost nearly all the money I had spent a lifetime saving, but I refused to lose something even more valuable, the ability to believe that people can change. Not everyone will. Some never do. But some, when faced with the truth, choose to become better than the worst thing they've ever done, and perhaps that is the greatest miracle of all. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 74 years old. A widow. A retired teacher. A mother. My daughter once called it helping. The bank called it fraud. Life called it a painful lesson, but in the end, what saved our family wasn't money. It was the courage to tell the truth, the humility to accept the consequences, and the love that refused to disappear, even after trust had been broken. because sometimes the strongest families are not the ones that never fall apart. They are the ones willing to rebuild, one honest day at a time.